my sleepy nights. And tonight, in the depths of the Amazon jungle, young Willa treads a shamanic pathway, beckoning him to a destiny shrouded in ancient mystery. The humid air hung heavy over the thatched rooftops of the village as Willa awoke before dawn. He could hear the chorus of howler monkeys greeting the creeping sunrise, their calls echoing through the lush green jungle surrounding his remote Shipibo community. Willa rose quietly, careful not to disturb his sleeping brothers and sisters, crowded onto woven mats on the floor of their modest hut. Stepping outside into the damp morning air, he made his way down to the muddy banks of the winding Amazon tributary, known as the Ucayali River. Kneeling at the water's edge, Willa scooped up handfuls of the murky water, splashing it over his face to wash away the last remnants of sleep. The 15-year-old boy stared at his reflection, rippling in the gentle currents. His long black hair was neatly parted down the middle, falling over his muscular shoulders. His rich brown eyes peered out from under a heavy brow, focused intently on the flowing waters. Willa always felt most at peace here, among the spirited currents, connected to the lifeblood of the jungle. For as long as he could remember, Willa had felt drawn to the mystical traditions of his people. The Shipibo were experts in the shamanic arts, guided by a profound spiritual wisdom passed down through generations. Willa longed to one day take his place among the shamans, revered elders who acted as healers, guides, and stewards of the community. They mediated between the mundane world and the enchanted realms they traversed in their. The shaman's world was one of magic and mystery. They worked with the healing energies of the plants, performed elaborate ceremonies with ancestral songs known as Icaros. Willa dreamed of mastering these esoteric skills himself. He hoped to learn how to heal, how to visit the spirit realm at will, and how to maintain balance between humanity and the natural forces they depended on. Most of all, He wanted to uphold and preserve the sacred knowledge of his ancestors. The traditions had been passed down orally for thousands of years. Yet, as contact with the outside world increased, Willa sensed the wisdom was under threat. He felt called to maintain the link in the chain of transmission, guiding future generations of Shipibo youth along the shamanic path. After his morning purification ritual at the riverbank, Willa wandered through the village as it came to life. Women stewed ayahuasca, the visionary plant mixture, over crackling fires, while men returned from fishing expeditions with the day's catch. The smell of wood smoke mingled with notes of chilies and roasted plantains, being prepared for the morning meal. Willa exchanged nods and greetings as he passed by neighbors on their way to begin the day's work. Most were dressed in a mix of traditional and modern garb. The women in colourful cotton dresses with intricate beadwork across their chests. The men in simple t-shirts and shorts. Willa wore his typical outfit of light linen pants and a loose shirt. Around his neck hung an amulet given to him by his late grandfather, one of the last elder shamans in the village. Arriving at the communal ayahuasca temple at the edge of the village, Willa carefully pushed aside the curtain. Inside the spacious circular structure, he inhaled the earthly aromas of the freshly brewed ayahuasca mixture. The temple was empty, save for the large clay pot full of tea simmering over a small fire in preparation for tonight's ceremony. Willa sat down, cross-legged on the woven mats spread around the periphery of the room. Closing his eyes, he began to sing softly under his breath one of the ancient icaros he had learned, praying for guidance from the Great Spirit of the ayahuasca vine. The words came spontaneously, a gentle rhythm flowing through him. The sounds echoed gently off the wooden walls. Suddenly, his song was interrupted by a voice behind him. "Your singing is out of rhythm, boy. Have you forgotten your lessons so quickly?" Willa turned to see Maestro Yari, ducking through the low doorway, clicking his tongue in disapproval. Though decades older than Willa, the revered shaman moved with a spry agility that defied his age. His long salt and pepper hair fell in a single braid down his back. His deeply lined face wore a stern expression, but his eyes glinted with wisdom and humor. "Forgive me, Maestro," Willa said. "I was distracted in my meditation this morning." "Well, clearly you need more discipline," Maestro Yari responded gruffly. "Why have you come to the temple at this hour anyway? Don't you have duties to attend to?" "I finished my tasks early this morning," Willa explained. "I hoped I might observe some of the preparations for tonight's ceremony." Maestro Yari studied the boy silently for a long moment. Willa fidgeted under the intense gaze of the elder shaman. Finally, the maestro spoke. "Perhaps it is time for the next phase of your training, if you are so eager." Willa's heart quickened at these words. After months of menial tasks assisting the maestro, Willa longed for the chance to truly begin learning the shamanic arts. "Come back tonight then, during the ceremony," Maestro Yari continued. "You may sit by me, start to learn. But this is a great responsibility. You must demonstrate discipline and devotion." "I am ready, Maestro," Willa said. "I give you my word." Maestro Yari nodded, seeming satisfied. He gestured for Willa to follow him outside. "For now, though, walk with me. I will teach you which plants are helpful for treating fever." As the rainy season gave way to clear skies over the jungle, months later, Willa applied himself fully to the shamanic instruction under Maestro Yari's tutelage. No longer a passive observer, he took on an active role assisting in the ayahuasca ceremonies, carefully studying the methods used to heal and guide those seeking spiritual wisdom. The maestro taught him the energetic qualities and medicinal uses of dozens of jungle plants. Willa learned to prepare traditional remedies to treat common ailments like infections, fever, and stomach illness. He also learned the diets and purification rituals required before working with different plants for healing or spiritual purposes. As his knowledge grew, Willa was also given permission to consume small amounts of ayahuasca under the maestro's watchful eye. At first, the visions were disorientating and frightening, but Maestro Yari's calm voice would guide him through the psychic landscape. With time, Willa gained skills to navigate the ayahuasca trance without becoming lost. The plant spirit itself began to teach him, imparting secrets regarding how to balance energies and interact with the spirit realm. When not learning directly from the maestro, Willa also closely observed the more advanced apprentices, taking note of their mastery of ceremonial techniques and their embodiment of the shamanic vision. One apprentice named Ocha specially took the young student under his wing, sharing a similar passion and enthusiasm for the shamanic path. The two built a close bond over long conversations, debating mysteries of the unseen realms. During these formative times, as his knowledge expanded, Willa felt his understanding of himself and the greater cosmos growing in tandem. He progressed swiftly in his studies, demonstrating great promise. The maestro increased his duties accordingly, allowing him to take a lead role singing Icaros during less formal plant medicine circles. The first time Willa's solo voice echoed through the still jungle air, backed only by the pulsing drone of magical leaf rattles. He knew he had found his life's purpose. It is time for you to embark on a solo vision quest, Maestro Yari declared one cool morning. Though not entirely unexpected, this pronouncement sent a bolt of apprehension through the now 17-year-old apprentice. He knew this rite of passage loomed ahead, a prerequisite for any aspiring shaman before gaining the title of Maestro. You have learned much, but many tests still remain, the elder continued. You must venture into the wilderness alone to face your weakness and forge a bond with the spirit world. This is the only way to become a true vessel for healing energies. Prepare yourself, for you leave at first light tomorrow. That night, Willa could hardly sleep. Anxiety and excitement coursing through him in equal measure. At sunrise, he said brief farewells to his family, hoisting a small pack of supplies onto his back. He wore a simple white tunic, walking stick in hand. Maestro Yari presented Willa with a woven bracelet bearing symbols meant to protect its wearer from negative forces in the jungle. Trust in your prayers and Ikaros, the maestro advised. But beware of tricks and deception. Not all spirits in the wilderness are benevolent guides. Willa departed without looking back, knowing the jungle would be his home for many months. He followed faint trails further from humanity than he had ever ventured, each step taking him deeper into an Eden of towering trees, snaking vines, and chattering monkeys. After several days of travel, he arrived at a secluded grove that would be his refuge. A rushing stream flowed over mossy stones, providing fresh water. The shelter he constructed was crude. A basic lean-to of palm leaves to keep off the frequent rains. Though apprehensive, Willa felt a surge of joy at his newfound solitude and independence. This freedom was not without its difficulties, however. The isolation weighed heavily at times, and fears crept in when the jungle noises became menacing in the dark. He faced bouts of doubt regarding his path when progress seemed stalled. Many juvenile notions and misperceptions about the shamanic arts were also challenged. No longer buffered by the village community or his teacher's wisdom, Willa was forced to trust his own growing instincts. Physical challenges added to the mental strain. Following shamanic tradition, Willa adhered to an austere plant diet, eating only bland boiled plantains and oats. This denied him the diverse flavors and essential fats needed for vitality, leaving him depleted over weeks and months in retreat. He also had to refrain from salt, spices, meat, and sex, believing these strong sensations could distract his heightened senses from detecting the subtle spiritual energies he sought to cultivate. In this weakened state, Willa's nightly ingestion of ayahuasca took on an increased intensity. At times, the visions were euphoric, filled with rainbow serpents bearing cosmic wisdom. More often, though, the psychedelic experience dredged up painful memories and fears. Night after night, he purged toxins from his body and spirit, sometimes screaming out in anguish under the unflinching gaze of the moon and the stars. During one particularly harrowing ceremony, he left his body and was lost for hours in a terrifying abyss. He felt as though his physical form dissolved entirely, leaving only a disembodied consciousness adrift in infinity. At the precipice of total annihilation, Willa cried out for deliverance. A brilliant azure light pierced through the darkness in response. It emanated from a resplendent blue morpho butterfly fluttering before him. This radiant being spoke without words, telepathically conveying meaning into Willa's awareness. It told him it would remain as his guardian and protector in his future journeys. With this winged spirit's help, Willa slowly returned to grounded awareness, awakening on the dirt floor, his body drenched in sweat. From that day forward, he swore devotion to the benevolent forest spirit who saved him from the void. The blue morpho's ethereal form would appear whenever Willa sang its Icaro, guaranteeing safe passage. As his retreat drew to a close nearly a year later, Willa felt exhausted but victorious. He had conquered his doubts and fears, found his voice as a healer, and forged bonds with the spirit realm, which would guide him on his path ahead. Most importantly, his sense of purpose had been refined by solitude. He felt ready to return to the village, not as a student, but as a teacher in his own right. Stepping across the perimeter of the village after so long away, Willa was shocked to find himself greeted with indifference rather than celebration. No one rushed to welcome him home. The villagers continued on their daily work without so much as a glance in his direction. Puzzled, he made his way to the ceremonial temple, assuming Maestro Yari would be eager to hear of his completed vision quest. But the elder shaman was not there. temple seemed abandoned, with no fire or brews for an upcoming ceremony. Wandering the village paths, Willa eventually found the maestro in his private hut on the far side of the communal grounds. "Maestro, I've returned," Willa called out from outside the woven bamboo door. "I trust the spirits have been kind to you these past months." He heard shuffling movement inside, and finally the door creaked open. The figure who emerged bore only a faint resemblance to the teacher who had sent him off into the wilderness a year before. Maestro Yari's hair was unkempt, his clothes disheveled, his posture hunched. He squinted and grimaced in the daylight. "Be quick, boy. What do you want?" the old man grumbled. Willa was taken aback, but proceeded gently, assuming the elder must be unwell. "Forgive me. I did not mean to disturb you. I only wished to let you know I have completed my solitary retreat and am ready to take my place as your new apprentice." Maestro Yari's scowl deepened at this. "I have no need for apprentices now," he snapped. "In fact, I am no longer leading ceremonies or taking new students." Willa reeled in confusion. How could this be? "Maestro, please, what has happened?" he implored. "I must understand why you now reject me, after sending me away on this journey." The old shaman sighed deeply, his shoulders slumping forward. "While you were gone, another took over the leadership of the community. My apprentices left me, and the villagers lost their faith in the old ways. I am now a vestige, cast aside." Willa listened in dismay as the maestro described what had transpired. The charismatic young shaman apprentice named Ocha abandoned the village while Willa was gone to be trained by elders from a neighboring tribe. He arrived shortly after Willa departed for his vision quest in the jungle. With Ocha's novel Icaros and showmanship, he quickly won over Maestro Yari's students and usurped him as head shaman of the village. Willa himself then became a threat as his return drew near. Ocha warned the villagers against this outside student who might try to challenge his newfound authority and divide loyalties. Ocha convinced them all to spurn Willa, describing the young upstart as selfishly pursuing occult powers without regard for preserving community harmony. Ocha now led ceremonies, establishing a new spiritual path for the village. Though still drawing from the Shipibo shamanic traditions, his approach felt foreign, overly performance-based, lacking in the gravity of the old ways. Listening to this, Willa felt as though a smouldering rage might consume him from within. He quelled the emotion, not wishing to upset his disheartened teacher further. But inwardly, thoughts of vengeance crippled him. How dare this arrogant interloper Ocha sow such lies? He had stolen Willa's rightful place. He had made a mockery of the ancient wisdom, using cheap tricks to dazzle rather than enlighten. Willa helped Maestro Yari tidy up his dwelling and brought him fresh fish from the river before taking leave. I will set right this injustice, Maestro, Willa promised. Ocha will pay for his deceit. The elder only sighed in resignation, seeming to have surrendered any hope of reclaiming his role and authority. Over subsequent days, Willa assessed the situation. Clearly, Ocha had become too established in the short time he was away to directly unseat. A direct confrontation would likely end with Willa exiled entirely. But he could not let the charlatan shaman continue manipulating the people either. After great deliberation, Willa decided on a new course of action. He would venture into uncharted jungle until he found a wise spirit or sacred site that could gift him shamanic powers beyond any Ocha could hope to match. Only then could he return and exact justice. Willa plunged himself into the dense overgrowth, letting his fury fuel him even deeper into the untracked expanse. The further he ventured from the village outskirts, the larger and older the leafy giants of the rainforest became. The massive trees blocked out the sky, leaving Willa in a twilight realm. Unfamiliar birds called in the canopy, and unseen creatures rustled in the bush. He moved, guided only by instinct, no longer certain if the spirits he followed were benevolent or deceptive. But he trusted his righteous indignation would see him through any adversity. His rage became a snarling jaguar, relentlessly carrying him toward retribution. At the base of a colossal tree, so wide 5 grown men wrapping their arms around could not meet, Willa finally collapsed in exhaustion. As he rested against a tangle of its sprawling surface roots, the tree seemed to pulse with a life force unlike any other tree he had encountered. Gently laying his palm against its grooved bark, Willa felt energy humming just below the surface. Vulnerable one, I seek your wisdom. He appealed to the ancient plant guardian. At first, no answer came. Then suddenly, an otherworldly voice echoed inside his mind. I see your wounded heart, child, it said. But the path of vengeance will only breed more sorrow. For all things are bound. Harm to one brings harm to all. Willa shook his head bitterly. Their dishonor must be punished. My righteous anger compels me onward. The darkness you fight can be dispelled only by bringing light to it, not meeting it with more darkness. The spirit of the tree admonished. Return to your center. Choose compassion over hate. But Willa ignored this plea for restraint. Sensing his hardened resolve, the tree spoke again after some silence. If you will not turn from this destructive course, then I have nothing more to offer you. With those final words, Willa felt the hum of energy leave the tree, its voice falling silent once more. Annoyed rejection coursed through him. Even this timeless guardian rejected his quest for justice, leaving the tree behind. Willa wandered deeper into the steaming jungle. Days passed in a feverish haze. Thorns tore at his skin and insects descended in swarms. But he took no notice. His very blood had become venom, driving him toward vengeance at any cost. When a clearing opened up amid the sea of green, Willa hardly registered the change of scenery. But some primal intuition told him this place held an ominous power. Faint notes of burnt herbs and crushed bone made the air feel heavy. He could sense twisted spirits seeping up from the muddy soil. Approaching a ring of stones at the clearing's center, Willa called out harshly, "I know you dark ones dwell here. Show yourselves." The ferns rustled. Shadows seemed to creep inward, and an unsettling chatter arose all around, the definite forms of spectres lurking just beyond sight. A raspy voice eventually responded, "Many travelers stray into our domain, but few with blood as simmering hot as yours, mortal. What wickedness do you seek from us?" Willa showed no fear in addressing the disembodied voices. "I search for power to destroy those who betrayed me. Grant me abilities beyond any shaman, and I will serve you in return." A chilling, clicking laugh echoed from all sides. "Foolish child, you have no notion what you ask, but we will gladly watch you sear yourself in your obsessive flame." With this proclamation, the swirling shadows concealed into a definitive horned form at the clearing's edge. Willa's breath caught at the sight of the demonic being that now approached. Its muscular torso and clawed limbs were charcoal black, matching its curved horns and bat-like wings. The creature's blood-red eyes glared hungrily at him. Willa stood frozen in place as it encircled him, razored tail swishing behind. His trembling fists were the only outward sign of his internal struggle. The primordial part of him attuned to light recoiled at this devilish apparition. But his fury smothered at any urge towards self-preservation. Opening his palms, he stated with icy resolve, "I forfeit all. My soul, my humanity, make me your vessel." A throaty chuckle emanated from the arched beast as it leaned closer. "Very well. But all power demands sacrifice. Are you willing to pay?" Its claw shot out faster than Willa could perceive, piercing his right eye in one fluid motion before he could react. He dropped to his knees, clutching his gushing socket in agony. Through the red haze of pain, he glimpsed the creature taking slow, satisfied licks of the dark fluid coating its talons. When Willa's screams subsided into whimpers, the wraith lifted his chin with one clawed finger. "Our bargain is sealed. I will now see through your eye. No turning back now, little shaman." It pressed a smouldering palm to the center of his forehead, searing in the crest of the underworld. Willa arose, his right eye now a swirling vortex of darkness, the mark of evil emblazoned above it. He felt unfathomable power coursing through his veins, like a writhing snake unleashed. "Return to your people, little one," the demon hissed, sinking back into the shadows. "Show them the fruit your bitterness bore." Even traveling at night to avoid notice, villagers spotted Willa's approach. Word spread quickly that the returning outcast now bore a strange mark and emanated an aura of unsettling intensity. Parents called children inside. Shutters closed. Dogs whimpered as he passed by. But Willa walked on with a single-minded purpose toward the ceremonial temple at the village heart. None dared intervene or speak when he entered the sacred space and overturned the urns of brewing medicine. Willa inhaled the smells around him deeply, further enraging the spirit now embedded inside of him. The apprentices gasped as the marking on his forehead glowed hot and his blind eye rolled back. The look in his functioning left eye was utterly merciless when he stated, "Bring me the charlatan, Ocha. Justice will be dealt this day." None present dared defy the terrifying figure he had become. Ocha entered before Willa, calm and peaceful. "Please, dear brother, let me explain. Your master's time had come to an end, and the people of this village needed me desperately. You were gone. Vengeance will only breed more darkness. Willa, you must kneel and accept me as your new master." Willa cut him off with a swift kick, feeling the demonic power thrill at Ocha's cry of pain. He raised his hands to summon the black flames of the underworld, ready to smite down this sniveling creature who had caused such disgrace. The twisting shapes of wraiths began to fill the temple space, eager to feast on the death energy. But as Willa prepared to loose their devastating power, a brilliant azure light suddenly flooded the entire space. The wraiths recoiled with shrieks as the glowing form of the blue morpho butterfly took shape. Wings spread protectively over Ocha's cowering body. Willa gasped in recognition of his former spirit ally. "This has gone too far, young one." The morpho's voice rang clearly within his mind. "You tread the path to darkness, from which there is no return. You know this is not who you are." Willa faltered, the chaotic power churning inside momentarily, abating. "But how can I just forgive? The anger consumes me. Anger is the tool of wounded souls," the morpho replied gently. "Your light still shines within, though diminished. Tend to the wounds first, and the anger will fade." The words sparked a memory of his true purpose: to be a beacon of light, an understanding like the great shamans he once revered. The grief, hurt, and betrayal he carried had warped that purpose. But seeing this radiant spirit before him, Willa felt the corrupting demonic energy loosening its grip. Sensing the shift, vile wraiths swirled around Willa once more. Don't be deceived by sweet lies, boy, they hissed in his ears. Take your revenge, as we granted you the power to do. Willa sank to his knees, clutching his head as the opposing forces battled over his soul. The blue morpho butterfly continued hovering close, pulsating with waves of tranquil restorative energy, calling on reserves of inner strength. Willa began singing an Icaro song of forgiveness. Though weak at first, his voice gained resonance until it rang out clear and true. The dark spirits shrieked in pain at the cleansing sound and light. Willa could feel them writhing beneath his skin. With a great cry, he expelled the demonic intruder from his body fully. It flew upward, melting into the darkness, its hold broken. As the last shadows retreated from the temple, Willa collapsed, utterly spent. The morpho butterfly landed lightly on his shoulder, affirming his choice. He had passed an impossible trial. Regardless of the outward consequences, reclaiming his integrity was the only true victory. In the days after Willa's dramatic confrontation and exorcism, a palpable tension hung over the village. Everyone walked on eggshells, tiptoeing around the newly volatile and mysterious figure in their midst. Some feared he might lash out again. Others awaited some divine retribution for harboring a marked demon vessel in their home. Willa kept himself to Maestro Yari's modest hut, spending long hours in meditation to restore balance and clarity after his harrowing ordeal. The gentle elder, observing the genuine humility in Willa now, became his only confidant. Eventually, as emotions settled, curiosity overcame the communal fear. Some sympathetic souls, like Willa's own family members, came to check on his condition and offer support. They were relieved to find him in a state of tranquility. The frightening aura dissipated. Even Ocha himself attempted a cautious reconciliation, wishing to make amends for his own part in spurring Willa toward the precipice of darkness. I underestimated your devotion to our people and these teachings, Ocha admitted during one vulnerable discussion. You have shown resilience of spirit few could match. Perhaps you are meant to guide us, not I. While initially aloof to Ocha's entreaties, still nursing hurt, Willa gradually softened. Together, they communally rebuilt the ceremonial space from disarray, gathering medicinal plants from the jungle and consecrating the freshly carved totems. Songs of the old lineage once again rang out, though the rift in the community required more time to fully mend. Willa focused on his own development for the time being. He deepened bonds with benevolent plant and animal allies, learning their Icaros to invite their blessings. His eye even started to regain partial sight. But the greatest change was within. The anger that blinded him burned away in the crucible, leaving abiding empathy and grace. By finding redemption after being lost in the wilderness, he reclaimed his power on new terms. He no longer needed titles or external adulation to fulfill his purpose. The wisdom itself was all that mattered. Seasons turned, and Willa grew steadfast in this newly centered path. As his compassion shaped the community, villagers began to seek his counsel on matters of spirit. Trust in his integrity renewed. They even asked him to lead ceremonies again for the first time. Willa approached these rituals with care and humility, still hesitant to step fully into a leadership role after his past troubles. But he found great joy seeing a spark of curiosity rekindled in the village youth. Their awe upon hearing Willa recount his experiences reminded him that the shamanic arts need not die out just yet. With this responsibility in mind, Willa took steps to complete his training on an advanced level. He undertook specialized diets, honing his inner sight and ability to traverse unseen dimensions. His dreams became strange. Animals emerged from the forest to offer teachings. The spirits of plants taught him advanced Icaros, and he awakened dormant senses, allowing him to see the living energy fields surrounding all things. In a final step, cementing his transition to honored elder, Willa one day approached Maestro Yari and humbly removed the bracelet signifying his apprenticeship. Placing it in the old man's weathered hands, Willa pledged himself as caretaker of the sacred wisdom from this day forward. Maestro Yari offered the bracelet back to Willa. Keep this as a reminder of where you came from. Your integrity is unquestioned. Let the spirits you so faithfully serve be your only guide. Rare was the occasion for true celebration in the remote village. But news spread swiftly up and down the Amazon's countless tributaries about the rise of a gifted new shaman. In recognition of both Willa's skills and generosity of spirit, nearby communities wished to formally acknowledge his mastery in the old tradition. When the appointed day finally arrived, Willa rose before the sun, bathing in the cool waters of the river. He purified himself in body and spirit for the initiation rites ahead. As the first hints of dawn filtered through the lush foliage, he dressed in ceremonial robes of patterned cotton. Vivid geometries told the story of his passage from student to master. Proceeding to the temple, Willa added the final touches to his appearance. Drawing from a clay pot, he traced intricate lines of deep red around his eyes and lips. The sacred paint would set the intention for this ritual passage. Lastly, he placed crowning feathers atop his head, symbols of the celestial realm. At the ritual site, Maestro Yari stood waiting beside a low altar, piled with tropical fruits and fragrant herbs. Despite frail health in his advanced years, he insisted on being the one to formally mark Willa's passage into respected elder. The two embraced warmly before kneeling across from one another. In a ringing voice that defied his age, Maestro Yari called out the ancient words passed down through generations on such occasions. Today we welcome another into the unbroken lineage of shamans serving humanity and spirit. Placing ink into a bone needle, Yari proceeded to tattoo Willa's outer forearms with intricate serpents interwoven with geometrical symbols of power. Willa remained perfectly still, focusing his mind as his teacher's steady hand etched the permanent marks of pedigree. When the final graceful curves and spirals were complete, Maestro Yari anointed Willa's crown with sweet scented oil, placed a feathered cloak over his shoulders, and presented him with a carved shaman staff denoting his sacred post. "Rise now, Maestro Willa," Yari proclaimed upon conclusion of the ritual in naming him Great Shaman. "Your devotion has proven unwavering. Now let your light ever illuminate the way for those who seek wisdom." The crowd erupted in rapturous cheers at this pronouncement as Maestro Willa rose to his feet. He felt proudly moved and empowered by the community's faith in him. With unbridled joy, he sang an expansive Shipibo Ikaro of gratitude, weaving in the sounds of jungle birds and river rapids as his voice rang out loudly